Sorry, say what do, one test what do.
Welcome to IIM Udaipur's flagship event, the Leadership Summit 2012. Now, before we start talking about what the event is and the itinerary that will be followed, for everybody here in the audience, I would personally like to tell you what IIM Udaipur stands for. IIM Udaipur, or the Indian Institute of Management Udaipur, or IIMU as we call it, is the 13th and the newest addition to the venerable family of Indian Institute of Managements, which are basically the key phase of management studies that the rest of the world knows India for. IIMU itself was conceptualized in the year 2009, whereas the classes itself started only last year on the 27th of July. Now, ever since its conception, the idea behind Udaipur, before I conclude, I think everyone, we would all like to welcome So as I was saying, since its inception, the central idea behind IIM Udaipur has been that of uniqueness. In fact, for many of us, the U in IIMU itself stands as much for the word unique as for the place Udaipur. And there are a number of ideas behind this concept. Firstly, and I think foremost when it comes to our institute, the idea of academics is the bedrock on which IIMU is based completely. And the pedagogy that is followed here is that of the case methodology and of Socratic learning. where every question is, where every case, every strategy is asked questions on, and learning is done from past experiences from the industry itself. So much so that over 60 to 70% of the course pedagogy consists of this case methodology. And we aren't lagging behind in using technology to further our institute's academics as well. Currently, I'm very proud to say that we are the IIM with the highest number of Bloomberg terminals, which are essential in the learning of finance in the world of India. In terms of leadership concept itself, IIMU has championed the concept of group leadership, where single individuals are no longer heading clubs and committees, are no longer the face of IIMU when it comes to the outside world. Everything is done on a group basis. So we're talking about groups of students coming together as a team, as a group, and then making the central idea behind whatever they have to do with the spirit of excellence and showing it to the outside world. So that is a concept that we champion here at IIMU. Two other concepts that we follow here at IIMU, and I'm again very proud to say, are those of rural immersion firstly and global immersion. IIM therefore believes that it needs to give back to the society, that it is essential that we give back to the society. And for this, our director has been kind enough to allow all students an opportunity to be part of the rural immersion program, where students from the first year go out into the region of Udaipur, into the various villages that are there, and in conjunction with an NGO, try to look at the problems that are faced by these villages and eventually come up with solutions. The course itself is graded, but I think what I as a student have personally learned is that it is the methodology that is followed and the experiences of those 3 or 4 days out in the villages that is most important. Secondly, the idea of global immersion is again core to that of IIMU. Not only has in its first year of inception itself, has IIMU started exchange programs with 2 of the top universities in Europe, but we also have a unique program called the International Business Program, where a majority of students in the second year, currently the number is 32 out of the 57, will get a chance to experience the business strategy and learning at 2 locations outside of India, firstly in Dubai and Bangkok. So again, the IBB program is something that is unique to IIM Udaipur. And what is an institute without its logo? And here itself, IIMU has tried to be unique. Our logo, as you would have been able to see all over the posters upon entering, is unique in the fact that it is the only linear logo in all the institutes of India. And this linearity itself has a concept behind it. What we mean to show by our linear logo is the fact that IIM Udaipur is dynamic. There is a balance and harmony, not only in the design of the logo, but also in the colors that is used. Again, another very important factor of IIM Udaipur is its location. The city of Udaipur, or the Venice of the East as it is known to most of us, is as global a location in India as you can get. And the location itself will help IIMU, and I think IIMU's culture and the spirit of leadership that we will try to excel in should give back to the location also. And regarding the culture at IIMU, we not only have clubs and committees as any regular institute has, but we have also tried to champion new methods of organizing those clubs and committees. So we are currently the only IIM running a Toastmasters International Club at our campus. And also one of the very few institutes in India who have their own SPIC McKay chapters. So 2 initiatives that have been taken by our students that are unique in itself. And finally, and probably as you would experience throughout the course of this summit, IIM Udaipur has championed technology in all its facets. So we were one of the first institutes to have a dedicated 1 Gbps line for all our hostels. And as you would see here, The summit itself is being broadcast live over the internet to all corners of the globe via live stream. So big hand to the organizing committee for that. I now hand you over to Akanksha, who will tell you more about the event itself.
Thank you, Piyush. A very good morning to this August House. The Leadership Summit 2012 is the flagship event of the Indian Institute of Management, Udaipur. We aim to make it a representation of all we have learned here as students. The idea for the summit was born out of a simple thought. How do we transpose everything we have learned here at this institute to the outside world? Now, the basic plan was that the future leaders of tomorrow must learn from the leaders of today. The institute aims to develop intellectual capital and nurture leadership with the ability to take on effective issues of critical importance in the future. The second idea behind the conceptualization of this event was that Udaipur as of now is a tourism hub, but we want to make it a knowledge and an innovation hub too. Our director, Jannat Sasha, believes in cohesive and inclusive development. He believes that no institute can grow without helping its surroundings to also grow. So we have promotion of business and industry in Udaipur as an aim of this event. Now, how did we actually conceptualize this event? How did we think of making the Leadership Summit our flagship event? When the pioneer batch of IIMU Udaipur started off, they felt the need to bring industry speakers to talk about various subjects. And that is how the Confab series by the Lakes was conceptualized. But then they eventually realized that this thing needs to be done on a broader platform. This thing needs to be done in a bigger way. And that is how the Leadership Summit 2012 was conceptualized 7-8 months back by our seniors. Jannat sir was told of this idea, and he was always being very, very supportive about this idea. Lots of hard work, because we had to start from scratch. We do not have an alumni base. So all contacts had to be developed, media contacts, sponsorships. We learned a lot in this whole process. There was coordination on many fronts, be it sponsorship, be it media, be it talking to the speakers, be it arranging all of the event here in the City Palace. Now, the basic theme of this event is ideation to execution in a business cycle. And from here, I would like to call upon our esteemed director, Dr. Professor Jannat Shah, to declare this event open.
So, on behalf of IIMU community, friends, I have a great pleasure in welcoming you all. It's a very important event for all of us. You know, as been told to you, we are a startup. And being a startup, this is the first time we're inviting industry leaders to our institute. And I must say that I and my colleagues, faculty colleagues, have played no role in this leadership summit. This entire leadership summit has been managed by students. So, we believe that we need to, when we talk about building leadership, it cannot happen in a classroom. So for us, this leadership summit is also a way of building leadership in student community. We gave them only, when they came to us saying that we want to do this event, I said, you're going to be on your own, we'll support you, but finally you're going to manage this whole thing. And I told them only two things. One, make sure when we look at IIMU, we work with a spirit of excellence. So whatever you do, make sure you work with the spirit of excellence. Second, make sure you don't interfere with academics. Okay. So there's only two things which I told them. So let me just take a few minutes on just talking about planning vision. I hope that's okay. So, as a startup, we think we have a great opportunity. We are right now known as the youngest IIM. We're known as probably 13th IIM. IIM with a suffix U. But we want to be known differently. We want to be known as an institute with a difference. And we think we have an opportunity to build that kind of institution. Now, when we go on that path, we must realize a couple of things. That building education institution is a long journey. When you look at top 5 institutions in the world, they're all 100+ years old institutions. When you look at Oxford and Cambridge, they're all 800 years old institutions. When you look at Harvard, it's a 400-year-old institution. So when we talk about building institutions, odds are not with us. We're aware of it. But at the same time, we think because of what's happening around, because of changes in the technology, because of changes in a global environment, there is an opportunity for us to build a great institution. And in this journey, we are focusing essentially on 3 things. First, we want to make sure that we focus on knowledge creation as well as knowledge dissemination. So for us, excellence in teaching and research both are equally important. The second element, which we talked about, is we want to make sure that when we look at our PGP program, we look at PGP program as a transformation journey. And I think it's talked about those things. Third issue which he talked about, which is we want to make a difference to the region. I think the Udaipur city has been very kind to us. Rajasthan state has been, at least giving us a great support. We must make sure we make a difference. So I think these are the 3 issues on which we want to build this institution. We want to make sure we focus on research as well as teaching. We make sure that we look at our PGP as a transformational program, and we make sure we make a difference. Now, regarding a summit, I think the students have done a great job. You need 2 things to have a great summit. One is, great venue. Right? And you can't talk about better ambience than this Udaipur. It somewhere imbibes the spirit of excellence. So, we have that one setting, which is great. Second, you need great speakers. And I think we can't ask for a better speaker. So I'm sure we know a wonderful day, right? I look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Shah, for those very, very encouraging words. I hope this event will live up to all that IIMU aspires to be. Now, before we move on with the event, we are honored to be graced by Maharaj Kumar Shri Laksharaj Singh Ji Mewar, who is the guest of honor for this summit. And possessing the bluest of bloods, his ancestry includes such luminaries of Indian history as Maharana Sangha and Maharana Pratap. Since the dissolution of the Privy Purses in 1971, the estate of the Maharana, as well as several of the ancestral properties, have been converted into hotels under the HRH group, of which he is the executive director. He is also the trustee and involved in the running of the foundation, the charitable foundation that is run in the name of his grandfather. And he takes a particular interest in serving and is extremely active in the conservation of Mewar's cultural and historic heritage. And talking about his other interests, he is also extremely involved in cricket, which is obviously the passion of the country. And in his free time, he likes to play music, paint as well as aero model. And for those of us who are into social media, he is very active there as well. He has over 36,000 connections on Facebook. So if we want to probably connect with him, that is the best possible avenue to do that. But his presence here is also a symbol of the spirit of excellence that IIMU intends to keep in not only conducting this summit, but as our director has talked about, taking this institute forward and making it into a transformation program. So without further ado, I would like Sri Rashida Singh Ji Mewar to come on stage.
Rashida Singh Ji Mewar gives his opening speech. I would like to request Janat sir and the members of the faculty to felicitate the prince and the speakers with bouquets.
I would invite Professor Shah to take the stage. I would also request Professor Thomas Joseph to give the bouquet to the keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Pradeep Kashyap. Next, I will invite Professor Srinivasan to present the bouquet to the moderator for the first panel discussion, Dr. Gopal Mahapatra. And Professor Sandhya Bhatia to give to the first member of the panelists to the first panel discussion, Mr. Devashish Poddar. Professor Sumit Kumar to present the bouquet to Mr. Ganeshan Ramachandran. Ms. Kavita Chotrani to present the bouquet to Mr. Kaushik Roy. I invite Professor Soumya Sarkar to present the bouquet to Mr. Sudarshan Jain. To end the panelists from the first panel discussion, I invite Professor Srinivasan again to present the bouquet to Dr. Sudhakar Kotaguchi. Moving on to the second panel, I invite Professor Sandhya Bhatia again to present the bouquet to the moderator, Professor Niti Sani. Professor Srinivasan to present the bouquet to Mr. Deepak Dheer, first member of the panel, second panel. Professor Soumya Sarkar to present the bouquet to Mr. Damodar Ramakrishnan. I now invite Ms. Kavita Chotrani to present the bouquet to Mr. Dilip Mishra. I invite Professor Thomas Joseph again to present the bouquet to Major General P.R. Shankar. Finally, I invite Professor Sandhya Bhatia to present the bouquet to Mr. Thomas Guruvilla, who is the last of the panelists from the second panel.
professors and the speakers. I would now like to invite Maharaj Kumar Lakshraj Singh Ji Mewar, Dr. Professor Jannat Shah, and the moderators, Professor Mahapatra and Professor Sanan, to light the lamp.
I would now like to request our guest of honor, Maharaj Kumar Shri Lakshraj Singh Ji Mewar, to kindly address the audience.
Greetings, namaskar, adab, everybody present here on the stage and in front of me. I think one of the reasons that everybody is having to suffer me today is because my dad's not here. So, you'll have to bear with me for today. But when I did wake up in the morning and have a look at the newspapers, it still said that Dad's back. So I thought Dad's back today. So I said finally, I said I'll be relieved and won't have to kind of face an August gathering. And I would be very comfortable sitting across and taking some notes and learning from all the experts that are present here. But obviously, to my disbelief, the newspapers didn't publish the news correctly and I still had to come. So there we go again. But thank you for inviting me and having me here. I think it's a great honor. It's absolutely a privilege to be present, and I think the topics that were chosen are absolutely sensational. However, I did put our academics here into action last night, say that I need to go on stage and I need to look intelligent, educated, something which is very, very difficult. But we still managed to scribble a lot of things. But I guess now I'm not going to go down that road at all now. Just made that decision while getting up from the chair to getting to the dais. But what I do want to talk about, all the beautiful people that are present here, is certain things that have always been very close to my heart, certain things that I've learned, understood, experienced, seen as the journey of life has progressed. And that's one of the things I do want to talk about, especially after hearing the panelists and the names. You've got all the experts under the sun that could be possible here in Udaipur to talk to you about this subject better than I can. But the one thing that I definitely want to talk about, which has touched my heart, is a scarcity of an emotion that I feel exists not only in this state, not only in these countries, but going beyond geographical boundaries. I think that needs to kind of be incorporated, it needs to be felt, it needs to be nurtured, it definitely needs to be massaged, and more so, it definitely needs to be practiced. Wherever you go, you discuss with people, you chat over social evenings, in seminars, or any other platform, sitting in an aircraft or a train, traveling from a place to another. Always you're discussing children, people, objects, goals, success. They all have one common statement. The other day I was discussing with a family about their child. And they came up and said, oh listen, I want my child to be the best engineer. And this is what we've done and this is how much we've invested in. Now he's got in the top institute of the world and so on. It was very fascinating. I said, well done, good luck, fantastic, no questions as far as I was concerned. that journey continued. Every other person I met को मैं चाहता हूँ मेरा बच्चा बहुत अच्छा डॉक्टर बने, मैं चाहता हूँ कि मेरा बच्चा व्यवसाय के क्षेत्र के अंदर in the area of business he becomes one of the biggest businessmen in the world, and so on. And after all these years, one thing that I've concluded is not a single person who came about and said, apart from all these beautiful things which are fantastic, and we all want children and people to be fantastic doctors and engineers and business people and socialists and activists, NGOs and people helping and so on. But not a single soul that came about and said that, listen, I want my child to be a good human being. I think that's the core and the base of everything, which I felt you can be a good doctor, you can be a fantastic businessman, you can be a great entrepreneur, but if you're not a good human being, then everything is baseless. It has no ground to stand on as far as I'm concerned. There are far more educated people sitting in front of me. There are far more wiser people sitting in front of me. I've just began to walk this earth very recently and started to understand it. But this was one thought, especially when I came out with this concept as well as it was presented, that all the academics brought out all the academic points in front of me, when they jotted it down from China to America to every other globe in the world, and I think which is very, very essential and very, very important. But to be a good leader, if you're not a good human being, there is nothing that you can do. Come here to urge, and I believe the time slot that was given to me was 15 minutes. There is no way that I can stand up here and speak for 15 minutes. I'm not going to bore you, trust me. But this was the one message, this was the one thought that I did want to kind of communicate to you and say to you. But apart from that, obviously, certain things will obviously be picked up along the course of the day, which are all very well aware of. Nothing that is new, nothing that the forum is not active about, but it's obviously finding solutions to these certain problems. As far as India is concerned, we love writing and we have a lot of things documented. So policies, as far as policies are concerned, we are definitely not paralyzed. But where we are paralyzed is with the goodwill and the motive to execute. So these are the two arenas where we are again feeling paralyzed. Either if it is in terms of our population, if it is in terms of being, what was the, making India, sorry, what was the, innovation hub. So again, making it an innovation hub, you've got to be able to be allowed to be execute without being paralyzed, where your goals are absolutely clear and where you know the will is to achieve. The same documents within our country are published for thousands of papers. The same papers for same policies in our neighboring states are published with just 30 pieces of paper. The intention is very clear. The motive is very clear, is to achieve. And here, as we all know, with our culture, with our systems, we all like to keep passing the buck. That, I guess, somewhere will need to stop. Somebody will need to take the bull by the horn and say that this is where it ends and this is where we will begin this journey. So I hope those leaders, those visions are born, and if they're born from within this hall, because there have been a lot of other seminars that have taken place, and a few of them have come out when they have attended here. I am hopeful that that will continue, and I wish this summit all the success, all the best, and once again, thank you for putting up with me, bearing up with me. And one request I had made to the director 1 year ago, I guess it wasn't considered. I will remake that request again, that I was very keen to come down to the institute, to interact with the students. I still await that time from you, sir, to call me back, call me. It's been a year, I've still been waiting, I shall carry on waiting. Hopefully it's not another year. I look forward to seeing you at the institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj Kumar Sahib, for your kind and enlightening words. We will now be breaking for a short tea break. Student coordinator Anish Rachega to give a brief introduction of our keynote speaker of the day, Mr. Pradeep Kashyap.
Good morning, one and all. Welcome to the Leadership Summit 2012. We are lucky to have Mr. Pradeep Kashyap with us today. He is an alumnus of the BITS Pilani. Mr. Kashyap is known as the father of rural marketing in India. He is recognized as the thought leader on this subject. Mr. Kashyap has authored the most definitive rural marketing book. In 1993, Mr. Kashyap started MART, India's leading rural marketing consultancy. He has been the marketing advisor to the Ministry of Rural Development and has served on the Prime Minister's office and the Chief Minister's committees on rural development. He is a World Bank and the United Nations consultant. He has co-created Project Shakti with Hindustan Unilever. Mr. Kashyap was the only speaker from India at the Cannes Lions 2008 among 50 global leaders who addressed the 2000 participants in France. Mr. Kashyap is the recipient of the Indian Merchants Chamber Award 1991 for his outstanding work on rural development. He was honored by Star News with the Talent Management Leader Award 2011. Mr. Kashyap's marketing career spans over 40 years and he is presently the president of the Rural Marketing Association of India. I take this opportunity on behalf of the Indian Institute of Management Udaipur to welcome Mr. Pradeep Kashyap on the stage for the keynote speech.
Director, IIMU, distinguished speakers, honored guests, faculty and students. I'm delighted to be here today with you because I believe that this institute is going to become one of the greatest institutes in this country. I just spent exactly 1 hour with Janet yesterday, and having been around for 45 years in the industry, one has developed some psychological side to one's work, and I could see the passion, the motivation, the commitment, and the vision. If I had been 45 years younger, I would have applied to this institute. But I would never have that kind of luck because I have never attended a business school. So you people are extremely fortunate that you are sitting at a place which is going to create history. As mentioned, I worked 20 years with 3 large multinationals in India, and thereafter I took voluntary retirement the year I turned 40 from the corporate sector and moved into rural development. And in 1993 I went on to start MART, which is based on the principles of what His Highness was talking about a little while earlier. So I'll just take a minute to talk about that. We are based entirely on family culture and family values. We are a 100-member team, all MBAs from B-grade institutes. We don't have anybody from the top institutes. We've not had more than 5 people leave us in the last 5 years, of which 3 have rejoined, and therefore only 2 people have left us in the last 5 years. I have been much more than a CEO or the owner of the organization. I am the father figure, and I can tell you that almost everybody in the organization got married after joining MART because they were all young and came out. And when the bride's father had to meet the groom-to-be, instead of going to meet the boy's father, the first company came and met me, find out what are the future career prospects of this young man to whom I'm going to give my daughter. So I played that role and sat in many weddings as the father. So in essence, we have founded MART on our punchline, which is business mind, social mind. And this is the thought I want to leave behind for everyone, that you will acquire the best business minds here. But if you don't have empathy for your consumers, if you don't engage and relate with your customers, then you can have the best mind but you will not deliver the best results. But if you have the right kind of heart, and if you have a reasonably good mind, you will deliver extraordinary results. Let's now get to the topic. The history of innovation, or modern innovation, starts with the Industrial Revolution. Before that, there was no mass-scale innovation. And for the last 200 years, all innovation has happened in the Western world for more affluent North American and the European consumers. The axis of innovation has started to shift only in the first decade of the 21st century, when the Western economies started slowing down economically and the BRIC countries started to become the new growth markets. I attended a seminar in Paris last year, which was called the Shifting Axis of Innovation. There were 30 global CEOs from SAP, Infosys, TCS, Godrej, Study Godrej was there, NIIT, Rajendra Pawar and myself, and then from Co, Accenture, many other companies across the globe. And speaker after speaker said that the axis of innovation is definitely shifting to these emerging markets. So that, I think, is a given reality. Coming specifically to India, we find that the more affluent metro consumer buys branded products which are similar to his Western counterpart. Therefore, there is not that much scope for innovation. On the other hand, the middle and the bottom of the pyramid have missed out the opportunity because there has never been any focus on creating innovative products for these segments. But with impressive GDP growth that we've seen in India over the last 20 years, starting with 1991, the whole country is moving from poverty to prosperity. Income levels are rising rapidly. If you look at the income pyramid today, there are 400 million people who are poor, who earn less than $1 a day. Right? There are 350 million people who earn between $1 to $5, and there are about 50 million people who earn more than $5. This is about 800 million rural people. I'm talking from the rural perspective. By 2020, this pyramid will morph into a diamond. The poor will shrink from 400 million to 250 million. The middle income will go up from 350 million to 500 million. And the rich will treble from 50 to 150 million. So, these 650 million middle and high income consumers are really going to be the new customer base for corporate India. And many of these people will be first-time users of branded products. So therefore, we will have to innovate a lot of solutions for these first-time consumers. So our approach to innovation will have to be very different from the approach followed in the West. For example, affordability is the most critical issue in a low-income country like India. Right? My mantra to companies, and we work with a large number of Fortune 500 companies, my mantra is very simple. You need to innovate products that deliver at least 75% performance at 50% price. And let me explain this with an example. Surf, till the 60s, was the leading detergent brand from the great Anglo-Saxon Unilever company in India. Till an upstart Nirma came up with a product which was priced at less than half. So that 50% criteria was met by Nirma. And what did it do? It knocked out the softener, it knocked out the whitener from the formula. So they could bring down the cost. Now, Nirma did the primary job which is required of detergent, which was to wash dirt from clothes. Of course, the clothes became yellow with time. Of course, you needed more quantity of it because there was no softener. By the 70s, Nirma, or the early 80s, Nirma had displaced Surf as the #1 detergent brand in India. So that is really what, when you come out of business school, you will really have to focus on developing products which are ultra low cost but deliver a certain performance. The second mantra is more from fewer resources for more people. Because India is a country of 1.2 billion people, so we have to really produce for more. But our resources are limited. And I think the classic example here is the nano. The amount of raw material that a nano uses would be about half that of a normal car. So you can actually make two cars with the same amount of raw material. And of course the price factor is very well met. If you compare the nearest competitor, which is Alto sells for about 2.5 lakhs, a nano sells for about 1.25 or 1.3 lakhs, so it's at 50% price. And it delivers most of that performance, but certain frills are not there, which are not considered necessary for the middle of the pyramid consumer. And the third is that solutions will have to be around existing ecosystems. And we must recognize that when MNCs come into India, they take certain systems for granted. For example, availability of uninterrupted power at the right voltage, the availability of roads, and many other infrastructures. So we will have to innovate around our existing systems. The best example that comes to mind of this highly affordable product is the sachet shampoo, which was started by a sheikh in the south, just 2 decades or more back. And that's what really opened up the rural market. Now look at the sachet. It sells for a rupee. Within a rupee, it includes the cost of the shampoo itself. It includes the cost of the packaging material, which is the sachet. It includes the cost of transportation. It includes the cost of advertising. It includes the margin for the entire channel, which is the distributor, the stockist, the sub-stockist, and the retailer. And it also delivers profits for the company. So this is the kind of challenge that we have to take up to create extremely affordable solutions for the emerging markets. Based on our years of experience, I believe that innovation must happen at 3 levels. One is product innovation, which we all know about. Second is process innovation. The third is people innovation, which is innovating the organization itself to become a more innovative organization. And I will touch on each one of these 3. Now, it's clear that tweaking existing products will not work. So we will have to develop products using a bottom-up community co-creation process where we involve the consumer as a part of the innovation process. So innovation will not happen in R&D labs, but it will happen out there in the field, whether it's the villages or wherever, because it will have to be done along with the consumers. And let me give you an example here from our work. We worked with the Shell Foundation to develop an improved cook stove. Okay? Every household uses a cook stove, so there are at least 200 million cook stoves in this country. When we worked very deeply with the communities in 3 different states, we learned some great truths about rural cooking. The first was that all rural cooking across India is done at the ground level, whereas all urban cooking, which is what you and I are used to, is done at the tabletop, at the counter. And therefore, the height of the stove has to be very different, because when you're cooking at the ground, then the height has to be very different. The second is cook stoves in rural India use wood, cow dung, agri waste, and a whole lot of other fuels. So therefore, the design of the flue gases and the opening has to be such that you get thermal efficiency across all kinds of fuels. Because you can't say that my stove will work only with this fuel, or you will have to make briquettes, or you will have to do any different things. Because as I said, we have to go along with the existing ecosystem. The third is that if you visit a rural home, you will find a wide variety of cooking vessels in their kitchens with different sizes, shapes, with rounded bottoms. So how do you create the top opening of the cook stove, which can take care of all these variations in terms of stability, in terms of fitting the size, ensuring that the the flame don't go waste and the heat doesn't go waste. So it's quite a challenge. Now, all of you will admit that this kind of an innovation could not have been done in an R&D lab. Because even if we were to do it in an R&D lab and use our urban biases, we would not understand how we would do things done and what the kinds of fuels they use. Therefore, we have to really look at a bottom-up community cooperation. The other thing is, I started out by saying that 3 levels of innovation, which is what I call the 3 Ps framework. So the first is the product. Globally, 95% of R&D funds have been spent on product innovation, which is wonderful. But in a country like India, where affordability is a great issue, right? Reach, if I take rural, we have 600,000 villages. So how do I reach my product to 600,000 locations? It's a sheer logistics nightmare, it's a supply chain nightmare. There's no country in the world, including China, which has 600,000 villages. Right? So therefore, we will have to innovate processes. Because I believe that there is a lot of value locked up in processes which companies have not looked at. So if you start unbundling unlocking the value, it can add to the profits of the company. Product innovation, as I said, is something which has been done, but it's not that critical to this country. The third is the people innovation. I first need to make a distinction between creativity and innovation. Creativity is an individual-driven process. Innovation is teamwork. And here we are talking about innovation. So therefore, innovation requires a high level of motivation amongst the team members. It requires to work in a collaborative mode. It requires a high level of rigor. Okay? And it requires an organizational culture which not only allows but actually encourages failure. Because don't forget that the rate of success is not even 10% across the globe for all products that are innovated. So therefore, 9 out of 10 times you are going to fail. In my organization, if somebody comes to me saying he has failed, I tell him it's a great thing because you're closer to success. Because you've actually gone through these 3-4 failures, so you're getting there. So therefore, I think organizations will have to build that culture. 3M, GE, Google, these are the companies that come to mind which have created a truly innovation culture. And that's why the best innovations are coming out of these companies. In the Indian context, in addition to all these things that I've mentioned just now about teamwork, innovation and all that, you also require companies to have the ability to work with underserved consumers, which are the poor or the middle income consumers, the bottom of the pyramid as we call them. The ability to manage cost of transactions. I think the shampoo is a great example of how to manage cost of transactions. And the ability to collaborate and develop solutions and partnerships with different stakeholders. I'll be talking about Project Shakti in a little detail, where we have partnered with the government, we have partnered with the bank, we have partnered with the self-help groups, and we have partnered with the state administration. So it has to be a collaborative effort. So I believe that companies that pursue a higher purpose with passion will make much better profits in the long run. If I may give the example of my organization itself, we work only with the poor. Our clients are always the poor. We may work with GE or with anybody, but the end client is the poor. And we work with a fair amount of passion, and our purpose is very clear: to improve the quality of life of the poor. We have been a profit-making company for all the 19 years of our existence. So it is not as if you work with the poor, you will not make profits. And this is a general belief that poor is equal to charity or CSR or no profit. We are a for-profit company, and I tell you, we make extremely decent profits. I now want to share a deep but little known insight. See, developed countries have very good physical infrastructure. So if you take the rivers, the roads, power, water, excellent. But their social infrastructure is not required to be that good because there are not that many poor people to serve. On the other hand, a country like India has very poor physical infrastructure, which we all know. On the other hand, we have an excellent social infrastructure which could beat the social infrastructure of any country today. There is no country in the world where the postman delivers letters to every doorstep. We have women's microfinance groups in every village of this country. We have Asha health workers in every village, the Anganwadi workers. So the challenge for companies is how can they leverage this existing social infrastructure to bring down their process costs in whatever way they can, okay, to make their businesses more profitable. Here I would like to take the example of Project Shakti, which was mentioned earlier, which is a highly innovative model that we created with Unilever, where Unilever, as you know, is the big daddy of rural marketing. ITC and Unilever are two big companies which entered the rural market 40 years back. And they had reached the 2,000 plus population villages, which are 100,000 in number. But below the 2,000 population villages, there are 500,000, 500,000 smaller villages, which account for 50% of the rural population, okay? And also account for 50% of the consumption. Now, Unilever, as the largest player, had to open up this second level market, but they didn't have a business model, because the minute you go to a 500 or 1,000 population village, you hardly have a shop, and even if you have a shop, the offtake is so small that there is no viable business model. So Unilever couldn't do this for 60 years. And when we started work with them, we had already been working with microfinance groups. So we have been struggling to find sustainable livelihoods for poor women. And here was a company which wanted to open up this market. So we brought the two together. We appointed individual women from these microfinance groups to become dealers. And they now go around selling in their own village. And they earn between 1,000 to 1,500 rupees a month, which really supplements their income. In many poor areas, it doubles the family income. So it is very significant for them. Now, why did we select these microfinance groups? There were two reasons. The first reason was that whatever model we piloted, we had to ensure that it could be scaled up. Now, because the microfinance groups exist in every village of the country, we knew if we could make it work in one district, then we could easily scale it up to the district. The second and more important reason from the company's point of view was that Unilever sells their products only on cash and carry. They said we will not give a naya credit to these poor women because we don't have that policy. Now, we could have appointed any ordinary women from the village as dealers, but this business requires an investment of 20,000 rupees, which women would find difficult to bring from their personal savings. That was the second reason why we went into these women from microfinance group, because they could take a loan from their group of 20,000 rupees and then run this business. Now, the biggest innovation, in my mind, was that Unilever did not have to invest any funds into creating their last mile distribution system. Had they to do it on their own, it would have cost them hundreds of crores. Right? So they just used these women as the last mile distribution model. So that's the area where I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Let us now examine the summit proposition, which is making India an innovation hub. I think the first question we need to ask ourselves is, are Indians innovative? This is a question I have often been asked by multinational companies when they come to India. They say, your learning system is all by rote, and your analytical abilities are not really developed, so India may not be a great hub for innovation. There is ample evidence to show that Indians are very innovative. And I'm not talking about Jugaad, I'm talking about regular, globally defined innovation. The biggest global innovation hub today is Silicon Valley. If you visit Silicon Valley and go to many of these companies, what you find is that the R&D head of the majority of these companies are Indians. Right? That's the first reality. The second is that multinational companies have set up somewhere close to 750 R&D centers in India. Okay? Starting with the Jaipur Center in Bangalore, which employs 4,500 engineers. So this clearly shows the faith and trust that multinational companies have in the ability of Indian engineers. Okay? And this is more true of the pharma industry because in that area there is also the whole process of innovation being outsourced. And Biocon is a typical example where they develop a new molecule at a fraction of the cost that it would involve in the US or in Europe. And that is the reason for success of Biocon, which clearly shows that the pharma industry globally has faith in the ability of the Indian scientists to innovate. But we also need to recognize and be humble as a nation and not believe that innovation will start coming out of our ears. When it comes to the big innovations like Google, iPod, these kind of innovations will still take a while to come out of India, which have a user interface, which are ready for final